good. Reimagine at 75, a new era for UK-India trade relations. Who better to speak to today? We've had the Home Secretary. We promised you 3 Secretaries of State today. Well, Right Honourable Anne-Marie Trevelyan MP, who of course is Secretary of State for International Trade, joins us today. Secretary of State, thank you very much for joining us. You're just going to speak for a few minutes just to warm us all up, and then I'm going to jump in and ask you all those tricky questions. The floor is yours.
Mark, thank you very much indeed. It's such a pleasure to join you all here at the India Global Forum today. But before, as Mark says, we dive into our conversation, I just wanted to share a few words and thoughts with you. Because in the 75 years since India marked independence, our nation's ties have matured into a really rich friendship. Our trade and our investment relationship has evolved too and is growing closer by the day. And as I'm sure you are all aware, we are taking this already very productive alliance to a new level through an India-UK free trade agreement. And this deal could offer us unique opportunities, but I believe it will also take a unique form. Let me explain. While our countries share long-standing ties, they also have different economies, and they also, of course, historically thought quite differently about trade. Such distinctions require a tailor-made approach. So that's because the sort of cookie-cutter, one-size-fits-all way of negotiating a trade deal simply doesn't exist. How could it when it comes to a country of India's extraordinary richness, diversity, and complexity? So whilst the deal would undoubtedly look different to the UK's previous free trade agreements, it would be hugely significant for us both by unlocking more trade and supporting long-term economic growth. So for India, a country that hasn't traditionally focused on FTAs as a means of growing its economy, an agreement will mark a major step in a new direction. It represents a chance to develop a fulfilling and economically beneficial partnership for the 21st century. For UK businesses, access to an economy projected to be the 3rd largest on the planet by 2050, a population of 1.4 billion people, could of course be transformative. And importantly, an agreement could provide room for growth. It will reflect the fact that our trading relationship will strengthen and evolve just as it has done to date. This will position the UK and India to together meet those trade challenges of the future. In short, an agreement offers significant opportunities for both our countries, and the UK is determined to seize them. Undoubtedly, though, negotiations can be tough. Success comes through compromise and cooperation on both sides, and there are times when we need to meet each other in the middle. So while we should be proud of what our nations have achieved so far, we should be unafraid of taking full advantage of the opportunities before us today. I know that Mr. Goyal recently talked at this forum about the need to fund innovative solutions to deal with those future challenges. And a free trade agreement with the UK gives us the chance to do precisely this through sharing knowledge and ideas and bringing people and businesses together. Of course, an FTA is a major step forwards, but it's not the only way our nations are supporting trade. Last year, we committed to seek to double UK-India trade over the next decade. Since then, there's been a steady drumbeat of progress. In fact, following the Prime Minister Johnson's visit to Gujarat and New Delhi in April, Indian and UK businesses announced more than £1 billion worth of new investment and export deals in areas ranging from software engineering to healthcare. And we are also concentrating on removing those trade barriers that can hinder businesses from exporting, and we are exploring new ways in which our industries can collaborate. There's a great example of this in my constituency in Northumberland, where the UK's leading R&D centre for offshore renewable energy is teaming up with India's National Institute of Wind Energy. They're committed to work together in areas like innovation, research, and boosting supply chain growth, building a partnership that will benefit both the environment and, of course, our economies. So this is just a snapshot of everything that's going on. And I'm really looking forward to seeing many more similar examples of UK and Indian collaboration emerging in the future. Whether it's through sharing ideas and innovations, bringing people and businesses closer together, or generating economic rewards, it's clear that an even closer trading relationship between our nations will enrich us in a multitude of ways. So if I have one message for my Indian counterparts, it is this. Let's take full advantage of this chance to strengthen our alliance, build those cultural and economic bridges, and reap the subsequent rewards for all our citizens, both of today and of tomorrow. So I look forward to some of your questions.
Wonderful. I think it deserves a clap, doesn't it? Thank you very much, Secretary of State. So much to get through, and I wrote lovely notes, rich friendship, a major step in a new direction, significant opportunities, negotiations tough. Just give us a sense, I mean, I'm a business journalist, give us a sense of trade deals and how tricky they are, you know, the process. Because we read about these deals, you know, we've done a deal with Canada, with Australia, we're talking to so many nations, specifically post-Brexit as well, and an India one would be a major coup for both sides. What's the process like? Because you call it challenging, meeting in the middle. What's it like?
Well, so there's a sort of framework of rules within which the chief negotiators and their teams follow. There's a sort of 10 days of intense discussions around a number of the areas that have been agreed for discussion, and then everyone goes away to recover.
Yeah.
in a literal sense, it's kind of deeply intense. So interestingly, last year when we were doing some of our FTAs with Australia and New Zealand, it was pretty much all virtual.
Yes.
Because COVID meant nobody could travel. So that was interesting in a physical sense.
Does that cut through time? Does that cut to the chase? Is that more efficient?
So no, I think decisions were made in a slightly different way, slightly more perhaps controlled way. When you're in the room,
yes.
Which of course with India we are now, which is fabulous, though I think there's been a bit of hybrid working for logistics practicalities, you can really get into the meat in a very speedy way. One of the challenges, of course, that our Prime Minister has set us to try and deliver, you know, the framework of this by Diwali, and in case it's a joke, this Diwali is actually what they meant, but, you know, when we tease them, we
October.
say, we haven't said which one, but, you know, 24th of October, it's seared in my brain now. That's really helped to help our negotiators to really focus on what's important and where the big prizes are. And indeed, where, as I say, where that meeting in the middle piece means that everyone needs to think perhaps in a slightly different way, both to other trade deals that we may have negotiated, or indeed why we are doing this with India, our really important
so is it achievable? Let's get the big question out the way. Is it achievable? Some say October, it's cutting it fine, and if we miss October, we almost miss a cycle because of elections. And is it imperative we reach this deal by October?
Well, I think it's imperative in the sense that we all want to get on and have the framework so that our businesses can crack on and, you know, make use of it, and we can see our economies grow together, not only between the UK and India, but UK and India together with other countries as well. And I think it absolutely is achievable. It might be, in a practical sense, there's this whole bit at the end of an FTA where the lawyers appear, as with everything in life, and they plough through, because trade language is it is a foreign language. I've had to learn it. It is a foreign language. Yes. But you learn that, so the lawyers have to really plough through that and scrub all the text to make sure that, and that both sides are sure that what they agreed was what they agreed, and, you know, so on. So that takes a bit of, you know, just takes a bit of time. So we need to have time to do that. So it may be that we haven't completed that part.
Yes.
But that's what I would call the boring technical bit. No offence to all the lawyers in the room. I don't understand. It's
any lawyers in the room? Hands up.
No offence to any lawyers who are listening. But that part is it. But what we want to really be clear is that by Diwali we've got that whole picture, and we know where we've found those great mutually, you know, adding value parts.
You talked about big prizes. There are thorny issues. Let's delve into the prizes and the thorny issues. What are the thorny issues, and what do you think are the, let's use the word, achievable prizes?
So I think, you know, with any FTA, the market access balance is always the one that everyone has to think about for the first time once you get to that part of the conversation. And I think the teams are just getting to that, and, you know, I'm going to let them get on with it for now, and we shall progress accordingly. I think what I want us to have as an FTA, and it's the challenge I set my teams for all the FTAs that we're now doing, now that we're, you know, free to really build these from scratch, is I want to see ambition in them. Really important for me, ambition and longevity. So they need to be much more than a kind of old-fashioned goods and services, yeah. Bit of this, we'll strip away a tariff here, we'll accept that. You know, that's fine, but that isn't ambitious, and that doesn't set a long-term relationship in place. So we've agreed a very broad framework of chapters, and I hope very much that we'll achieve all of them, because I think that's where we get that depth of long-termism to this FTA, which is what we all want to achieve.
We've had business leaders, non-stop Secretary of State in the last 24 hours talk about the need to bring talent to the UK, this wonderful entrepreneurial spirit that is such a part of Indian life, these skilled workers in areas such as digital and technology.
Absolutely.
That bridge, that living bridge, will it be made easier via this trade deal to bring in this talent that is so wanted by all the panelists we've had in the last 24 hours?
So I think, you know, key, and I think this is a global challenge, isn't it? Businesses' growth depends on its people, and as we move into these many new areas of digital technologies, those young people coming up with the right skill sets are critical to success for all our businesses. Really interesting, and I know you had the Home Secretary here this morning. Right. I don't know if she mentioned that the Global Talent Network, which is effectively does what it says on the tin, seeks global talent to come to the UK. Over 40% of all those who are coming through are from India already. Yeah,
she did highlight.
A really interesting reflection, I think, of exactly what you highlight, which is that businesses know where this talent is, and they're already using the tools that are available to do that, and we will continue to do that. Of course, the part of the FTA and the relationship that inward FDI in both directions will afford will also help highlight and hone where businesses want to invest their money and see those make best use of these amazing young people with their fantastic education.
How much of a necessary and needed win is this for the UK when it comes to trade deals post-Brexit and during the whole sort of Brexit campaign and in the years after, before it was formalised, before we formally left the EU? There were promises of trade deals across the world, new countries to explore and to build partnerships with, and we've had successes, and often they're not celebrated, and I'll celebrate them. We've had Australia, we've had Canada, and we're talking to a lot of countries. There's this Trans-Pacific partnership, which is possible. The GCC, you're talking to Canada, you're talking to Mexico, Israel, many things which we probably don't read about every day, which is very important we highlight. But would India, it seems, be the coup? I mean, I'm not demeaning Australia and New Zealand. How important would that Indian FTA be as a PR coup, something to present to the UK public? Maybe some of those that weren't so happy with the outcome of the Brexit vote.
So much more than a PR coup, an incredibly important relationship that we want to be able to deepen, strip away, as I say, strip away those barriers. India is, changing, Prime Minister Modi's leadership and the living bridge that he talks about, and his genuine commitment to wanting India to be part of the, the global economic family, not just grow the success domestically, is, I hope, and we come to this in genuinely good faith, a way that this UK-India FTA can help embed that. So for us, huge opportunities, new markets, a growing middle class. Some of from a traditional goods and services perspective, huge opportunities for our businesses to find new markets and opportunities to take the best of British brands into India, but really importantly, work together to see. I mean, I look at a company like JCB that has been working, an absolutely classic in every sense British brand, making diggers around the world. 40% of all their business is based in India, uses fantastic Indian talent. I was visiting their Delhi factory when I was there earlier in the year. These brilliant young engineers, so impressed. So many more women engineers there than there are in JCB in the UK, just saying. I kind of keep teasing them about that. But amazing to see. And that harnessing with that mutual investment to grow those economies, I think is something really exciting. So genuinely for the UK, this will be a fantastic trade deal and a chance to embed, in, as you say, in this 75th year, a chance to look forwards for what mutual trade.
What does that mean to you?
Brings.
We love this Reimagine at 75.
It's a lovely word.
What does it mean to you, Reimagine at 75, not just for India in the next 25 years, but for the UK-India relationship?
So I genuinely want to see, I love the living bridge description. Obviously the diaspora in the UK is enormous and part, part of our, part of the UK. It's an embedded part of our world. To be able to grow that for the next generation, my children in their early 20s, and that next generation who see the world in a very different way, see it in an incredibly interconnected way. Of course they do. The world is very small, but in other ways, the Indian cultural and economic growth that's going on now is genuinely so exciting. And the UK wants to be at the heart of that. We want to be part of it. We want to be, helping, and we want to be able to make sure that UK businesses and our citizens are at the heart of those growth opportunities.
What areas excite you? Because in the 2030 roadmap, we talk about health, climate change, people to people, trade, defense, security. Such big areas, all five, those five pillars, as they're known.
Absolutely.
Which areas excite you the most, and which areas are we seeing real inroads as we move through the 2020s to that 2030 end game?
So I'm a bit biased,
Yes.
and I'm very proud of being biased. I was the Energy Minister for the UK last year, and I was charged both with writing the UK's net zero strategy and working alongside Alok Sharma as we hosted COP26. And I was working particularly closely with the smaller and most vulnerable countries on adaptation and resilience. So I was able to really be deeply involved in thinking about how technology and transformation could help the planet to get to grips with and get ahead of the planetary disruptions that we have caused. So for me, green trade is one of the most exciting parts of what we can do. It's critically important that we all do it, we get it right, and that we change and we move away from our hydrocarbons use, and we think about not only using the right energy, building the right energy resources, but also living sustainably on our planet. And there is so much opportunity for business to lead on that, profitably and successfully, but also with that really deep, critically important and urgent solutions that need to be found. And that comes not only from the kind of heavy manufacturing of building wind turbines and investing in grid systems, it's using innovation to think differently how we live. And I think that's very exciting.
And you've got big ambitions. I mean, the green economy is projected. I love stats, by the way. I'm going to steal Secretary of State stats.
Go on then.
Green economy here in the UK projected to grow by 11% per year out to 2030. And by 2050, over 1.2 million people could be directly employed in low carbon goods and services sectors, which is a six-fold increase for today. So it's a huge opportunity, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, it's an enormous new market, which clearly we should harness. And, I think these generational shifts in business focus and how we do things, it's the horse to the car. It's, these enormous changes that we have driven forward as humans. And we need to get this right in a way that is not only economically successful, but make sure we are going in the right direction so that we have a sustainable planet. And I am genuinely excited by how I think we can work with India. Some of the, the world leading, both goods and services and service skills in this area that the UK has. I want to make sure we harness, and that with India we can work with India to see their growth go. And then the enormous opportunities. I say one of the things I think that the FTA will give us the opportunity to have is the UK-India relationship together in third countries, where we can work together to bring those opportunities and those solutions to other countries as well. And I think that's going to be a really exciting part of this as we tackle what is both an urgent and massive transformation for our planet.
Secretary of State, when our viewers think about trade, many think about Brexit, and many think about the opportunities and maybe the lost history that happened because of Brexit, the linkages with the EU. And I saw a news piece earlier today, and it said Brexit is an albatross hanging around the neck of the UK. And it would be remiss of me not to bring up Brexit. So we have structurally higher inflation. We have lower investment flows. Sterling is falling. Markets are sinking as well. We've got a cost of living crisis. I know many of these things aren't Brexit related, but some are. What do you say to those who look at Brexit, look at what was promised, and just see what we've been left with. The state of the UK economy strikes in recent weeks. You know, many are likening it to the 1970s. We're approaching possibly a recession. We're approaching 11% inflation next year. This doesn't seem to be like the nirvana we were promised post-Brexit. And I know many of it isn't linked to Brexit, but some of it is. What would you respond to that?
Well, so I would say I'm not sure that I recognise your description of our country. I think the whole world is enormously challenged post-COVID. You know, the incredible disruptions to supply chains and indeed to energy, where many, for instance, gas supplies shut down, oil production lowered because, you know, aviation industry, for instance, stopped. You know, huge disruptions to some of these really important supply chains. And as those are, you know, getting themselves back on track, there has been a lot of disruption there. And of course, added to that, the illegal invasion by Mr. Putin to Ukraine has, you know, disrupted those even more. And these energy price spikes, of course, is the leading part of the inflationary pressures that we're seeing, not only here in the UK, but across the world. So tackling those is really difficult. In terms of Brexit, I would simply disagree. The COVID disruptions to trade clearly had some impacts on our EU trade, but our EU figures are now above what they were before COVID. So we are in a very strong, you know, back to a very strong trading relationship with our European neighbours.
Is that relationship about to be stymied due to the whole Northern Ireland protocol? There seems to be a view that if that goes through, the EU obviously won't be happy, and there could be tit for tat, and maybe people are talking about a trade war between the UK and the EU. Is that coming our way?
So I hope not. I think the discussions, and as the Foreign Secretary would say if she was here, the discussions with her EU counterparts to solve some of these what are very practical market distortion flows that have been going on as a result of the protocol. I always say the protocol was designed quite rightly to be very protective of the Northern Ireland issues, this unique relationship that it has obviously with the UK and with the rest of Ireland, on the island of Ireland. Really important was that everyone wanted to make sure that those flows were undisturbed. Now, it was written before the Trade and Cooperation Agreement was concluded, negotiated, because Ireland was the most important focus for everyone to keep stable. But actually, if we can fix those, what are fundamentally just market distortions, and that's what is in the protocol bill, that will solve most of it. And that indeed, those negotiations will continue with the EU whilst the bill progresses through the House.
Is the Northern Ireland Protocol issue hindering relations with the US? You've struck this deal with Indiana, a US state.
Yes,
now,
many
in the UK would want bigger deals than with states, but that, you know, I said I'd sing your praises. There are many more likely in line, probably 5, 6, or 7 in the offing with states. But what about the big beast, the US? You know, you hear from Nancy Pelosi, you know, the House Speaker, if the protocol is, you know, rejigged, you're going to be back in the queue when it comes to a trade deal. What are you hearing? What's the mood music like with the US when it comes to a UK-US trade deal?
So I've got and built up a fantastic relationship with both my US counterpart and the Secretary of State for Commerce. I was able to unlock the Section 232 tariffs that Donald Trump had put on the EU and us back in 2018. And in negotiating those, a very clear understanding that the UK-US relationship is deep at every level, you know, much like India's. These are very, very long-standing and profoundly important relationships. That was a punitive tariff, which was not appropriate. So having removed that away, we're now able to have, and we are having it at a federal level with my counterpart, Catherine Tai, the US Trade Representative, lots of discussions around those areas where, when the White House decides they want to engage in the formalities of an FTA once again, we will be very much ready to up and running. But in the meantime, to your point about state relationships, a lot of issues like mutual recognition of qualifications are not held at the federal level, they're held at the state level. Procurement opportunities, you know, state-level procurement opportunities, those are nothing to do with federal states. So we've taken the opportunity in the time that we have whilst the White House is focused on its domestic agenda to talk with those states where we know there are UK businesses that want to do more with particular states, and indeed vice versa, to build those relationships and to find ways to strip away some of those market access barriers. I've launched today my bonfire of barriers across the world where businesses say to me, weird and wonderful, quirky things that are sort of clogging up the system. And we go and try and unlock them at a single market access barrier conversation. With individual states across the US, we can unlock lots of those barriers. So that's what we're working on for the moment, and I hope very much, and I can't tell you when, it's a White House question, but in the meantime, we are continuing to grow what is obviously an enormously successful bilateral trading link with the US in the meantime, and helping our businesses and their businesses to be able to do more back-to-back. Because at the end of the day, the FTA is like the gold standard, the top prize in terms of opportunities for businesses to find it easier to trade together. But actually, in the meantime, trade carries on nonetheless, barriers or not. What we want to do is to find those ways to unlock it in as many ways as possible. And the beauty of Brexit for the UK is that we now are in control of and can manage our trade policy. We can determine where we want to be focusing our energies on unlocking those trade barriers and on building our FTAs. And that's why India is such an important partner, and why this FTA is one of my kind of five, my year of five top star FTAs. India is right at the heart of that this year.
Talking of mood music, just before we disappear, what's the mood music like in number 10? It's been a difficult time, especially when Prime Minister Johnson was in India. Distractions, a partygate, by-election, losses. It's been a difficult time, and I know that the Prime Minister's determined just to get on with it. How difficult is it to get on with it when clearly there are major distractions? 40% of the party don't want you as Prime Minister. I mean, can he last to the end of this election cycle?
Well, I think so, because he has such a big vision and an ability to drive through really hard things. I mean, he's demonstrated a number of times over. No one thought it would be possible to actually deliver Brexit, but he was so determined. He's such a strong Democrat. We had asked the country in a referendum, something we don't do very often here in the UK, possibly for good reason. We shouldn't do them too often.
Although there might be another Scottish one next year, but we won't talk about that.
We're not talking about that one. That actually, he was determined that the British people must, see that the referendum was respected. He brought forward this incredible effort when COVID hit the world with our vaccine task force, delivered the first vaccine, what's turned out to be indeed one of the most effective vaccines, led the way both in funding through Gavi and through COVAX, the ability to make sure that countries whose needs were greatest and least able to support were able to get vaccines as well. He has this incredible ability to cohere support and to drive through those difficult decisions. That he will continue to do. I think he would be the first to say the frustrations of day-to-day life, the midterm election cycles where you get, horror show by-elections. I think it's happened to every Prime Minister.
He has your unconditional support?
He absolutely has my support, because I know that he is the best man to help us deliver the agenda that we want to.
Let's leave it on that note. We could talk for hours. Brilliant chat. Thank you so much, Secretary of State
Thank you so much.
Anne-Marie Trevelyan. Big round of applause.